A good Isur Chag to everybody. Okay, it's 6:23. Let's begin. So, just to clarify something, the general subject here is the profound effect we have on God. That's what this Maimon in layer after layer is revealing. It is one of the most nuanced, challenging, deep Maimorim, period. It's an edited Maimon from Shavuos of 1965. The Maimon was said before dawn, at dawn, Shavuos morning. Now, specifically, there's Eses Vidus Hagluyos and Eses Vidus Hagnuzos, which means the 10 manifested spheres, and then Gnuzos means literally hidden. Now, what does this mean? The 10 manifested spheres themselves, which classically refer to the 10 spheres of Atzilus. So the emes is that very often and generally Atzilus is the world of not creation, but the divine. And that's not being changed in this Maimon either, but there's still a profound distinction between the 10 spheres of Atzilus and the Eses spheres Agnuzos. The 10 manifested attributes of God clearly relate another template of creation to which creation relates directly. The vision of the prophets and so on, the Adam, the supernal man, which we mirror in our own makeup. So that is all a reflection of the 10 spheres of Atzilus. So Atzilus really is, it's kind of a quasi-state. It is on the one hand God's manifestation. It's Atzilus, and not part of Biyah, not part of creation. But already in Atzilus is a direct interaction between post-Atzilus and Atzilus, where the effect there is to be expected and natural, because God has manifested himself in the construct which we mirror. So obviously there's a relationship. But the big chiddush is that our relationship with God and effect on God goes beyond God's decision to manifest attributes. Sublimely within the divine itself, we have this profound effect. Now, here's the general outline of the Maimon. The Maimon makes reference to the Eses Spheres Hagnuzos, the hidden 10 spheres. The paradox of the hidden 10 spheres are, this is the paradox, a profound paradox, that they only exist if we summon them when we relate to them. They are a state of possibility, which means God has allowed himself to be affected, but there is no effect yet there. He's allowed himself to be affected, and we're soon going to dissect that level in a minute, the nice ches. So when we call upon God, so that creates the existence of the spheres. Now he gave 3 misholim to understand the Eses Spheres Hagnuzos. Level 1, level 2, level 3, concluding that the deepest level of Eses Spheres Hagnuzos is the 3rd marshal. And that is, well, the first two are certainly the first are just illustrative, or rather functional, to get us to the next marshal, These are misholim of something that is contained within something else. As we progress through the misholim in less and less differentiated manner, less and less something else, but more just the source itself. So the first example is the flame within the coal. So overall, it's a burning coal, but the flame and the coal clearly are 2 separate things. That's clear. That's not a marshal for the 10 spheres Hagnuzos. Although in the end, it is on the because there's levels of the necessary agnosis. We're probing the source, the origin in its most pristine and highest form. That's not the marshal, because there it's already something separate from the call itself. And we're talking about a level of absolute oneness of the divine. That's the paradox, oneness, but still 10 spheres. That's what we're trying to reconcile. So the second marshal is the fire within the rock, getting closer to our quarry. Excuse the pun. Rocks are quarried. But no, even there, the power to produce fire within the rock is still something separate from the essential rock itself. It's a property. It's a property within the rock. So if it's a property, it's still distinct from the essence of the rock. So that's a marshal of Esek Viris Agnosis. He acknowledges that, but a lower level of Esek Viris Agnosis, a more articulated level. The level of Hakudim, without repeating that again. But the marshal, the truest marshal for the Esek Viris Agnosis is, again, possibility. That's the term. And the marshal for that is a name. A name. The person himself doesn't require his name. And the point of a name is meaningless to him. Not just he doesn't require it, it is absolutely meaningless. That he has a name by which somebody else refers to him, it has absolutely nothing to do with him. And yet, not and yet, but therefore, what is a name? A name is when somebody calls you, you turn. So if somebody will use the name, then you'll turn to them because they've called you by your name. So what does this bring out? So a name is this possibility. If someone doesn't call it, it doesn't exist. The name only exists when someone refers to it. I don't have a name. I don't need a name. It's completely not me. So let's get this very clear. It is a possibility. It becomes a reality when someone refers to it. When someone calls it, then my name exists. If someone doesn't call it in my world, it doesn't exist. And the paradox is when someone calls me, I turn in my totality. That's not actually, maybe the end of the mind will be addressed. I don't know. So the Esek Sfiris Agnosis are called names. We find that Lashon in Chassidus. We find the Lashon Ein Mitzias L'Gnuzois, the hidden spheres, as it were, do not have an identity, just like the name itself. If someone doesn't call it, it doesn't exist for me. I walk around in my world, and if someone's not calling me by my name, it's not my world. It comes and you create it, so it's a possibility. So that's the mashal he concludes with for the Esek Sfiris Agnosis. It's Yechelis, possibility / names, which is what a name is. Now, can you tell me, just spew it back? So why is the name a possibility? Why is the name Yechelis? Just hit the nail on the head. Why is it a possibility? Because, finish the sentence in 4 words, 5 words. Why are you calling it possibility? Because if someone doesn't use it, it doesn't exist for me. If they use it, then it exists. So it's a possibility. It's not integral to my being whatsoever. I could possibly turn my attention to someone if they summon my attention. If they don't, then I remain me perfectly. We clear? That's why it's a possibility. And it's created by the other. So this is a marshal of Esek Sfiris Agnosis. The Esek, so here's the question. Do the Esek Sfiris Agnosis exist as an entity? The answer is yes and no. They will exist if a Jew will call God Chassid and Rachom and these terms, and they don't exist and we won't call him that. So who creates the Esesviris Hagnuzas? We do. In the words of the Maimah, Halos Man, the elevation of the feminine waters, which is a catchword for Avodah, which starts in Atzilus. Atzilus is already Halos Man. Because it's, as we said before, it's an integral relationship with us. It's Neshamas of Atzilus, walking around. So the Eses Vidas Agnuzis, and that's going to be the moshel as he unpacks the moshel of Kamayim Panim Lepanim, the image that's in the water. What exactly is that image? It's nothing other than the water, but it only exists in the water. It's not something else. But it only exists when the face is facing it. When the face doesn't face it, there's no image there. And when it does, it's only what? Pure water. The water is unchanged. But it's created by the one who Kamayim Panim El Panim. Now, this is a divine decision. God says, you will affect me. And you will create, as it were, within me that which would not be, but only exists because you call me that. By you calling me this, you create that, You, words fail here, but that now becomes me. I respond to that, and I respond to it in the deepest level. The Mayim is the marshal for the Ein Sof. We need to be clear somewhat on this point, and then we continue, revisit Eis Ches. Are we clear? Yecheles, possibility, that's synonymous with the unit of a name. Because he's now going to give a fourth level. He's now going to identify a fourth level. Because as heads up, the question he's going to ask is that if the level of the Esesviris Hagnuzis don't really exist intrinsically, they exist only because when a Jew calls upon God. So therefore, that level is really pure pshitos, Ein Sof, Yecheles. What's the difference between that and the Ein Sof itself? Yecheles. What's the difference between the level of the Esesviris Hagnuzis and the pure Ein Sof? Likewise, pure Ein Sof is absolute pshitus. The Gnuzas don't exist there unless we call it. So in essence, there's nothing there. It's all godliness. That's the question he's addressing now in Ches. And a third level, and the fourth level, I'm sorry. And l'chayr, it seems that a motion for the fourth level is not a name, but a deeper level. The consent that if I would have a name and someone would call it, I would turn to them. It precedes the name even. That's a moksha for the Ein Sof. That's activist agnosis. This is the name already. So I'm giving you a heads up, l'chayra. That's the pshat. In the fourth level, he's going to identify. Again, not a name. Again, a name only exists when you call. So there's no name really intrinsically within me. That's the level of Esesviris Hagnuzis. What's the level of the Ein Sof? The level that articulates that Ratzon. The level of that would be the consent, that the person has this given consent, that if I'd had a name and you called me by it, I would turn to you. But there's not even that given. That's the grade of the fourth level that he says now in Eis Ches. Is that clear? Are we closing the door? Yeah. Let's have a look at Eis Ches again. He's going to ask the question, and let's understand the question and try to understand the answer. Mavuli, we said before in Sivdalat Vehei, Bepidish Akasa Kamaim Panim Lepanim, explaining the pasuk like the water reflects the face that faces it. So too, the heart of man responds to. We explained that already. The focus so far now is we're going to revisit that and start most of that level. So what did we say before? The K'moish b'mayim kipshuta. Just like literal water, they stock this by looking, facing the water, nidis b'hem, the musapan mishim mistakelis b'hem. So that causes the image to appear in the water itself. So this is a Moshe b'mayim elyonim. This is a Moshe we explained before for the supernal water, which is the pshitos, the infinite, like water, which defies all color, form, etc. What did we say? We said, like the face facing the water, the face is now in the water. We said, this means, through Avodah, that's what the words mean. It's referring to, geographically, Atzilus. Atzilus is ascent. But Atzilus is ascent is through our Avodah. So through the Alos Mandas Vidus upon him, that's the face we're showing, the face of Atzilus, which is reflective of our face in the word Avodah, Lo'ir Sof. So through our turning, our ascent to Hashem, to the Infinite One, Nasib boy in Svirus. So we create within him Svirus. And that's the Svirus Agnosis. All right? But it's only created, that's why the Moshel is the name, when you call. When we, bound by these 10 attributes, will then serve God, call out to God, serve, connect him, we impression the Eibishter with us. That's the Svirus Agnosis. Clear? You're just repeating what we said before. Maybe this itself is beyond us. It's not that. Again, the word here is this vulnerability. The whole point of the Maimon is to say it's not the Eibishter, it's God. And so he decided, when we do Avodah, he's going to grant us. The benevolent, supernal King of Kings will give us Panos and give us Gashmis and give us Ruchnius. But what he gives us is not him, he's rewarding us. The point of the Maimon is that he's giving himself. And giving himself means, in the deepest way, when you allow someone, push it, understand it psychologically, when you allow someone into your life so deeply that what they are experiencing, you experience. And then you give that's the deepest connection. You are one with them. You're one with them because you are feeling what they feel. That's oneness. That's someone in your life. And that's what he's saying is Lamayl. Where does 10 Tzviras come in the Ein Sof? Gnuzis is because that was God's decision. Again, like a name. I don't need my name. Ever. If you want to call me, then I need a name. But the point is that when you call me, he's saying, the one who calls impressions himself on the Eibishter completely. You're calling me, and you were made up with intellect and emotion and a body and it's other that works. All that's impressions on the Eibishter. Okay, so that's the first point we said. He's going to get to the question. Then we said, are we clear so far? That through Avodah Nasa Boy Inyan Svirus, this creates within him, I'm reading the words again there. The Svirus, that's the Svirus Agnosis. Names, possibilities. But it becomes when you call. The possibility becomes actualized when a Yid calls on the Eibishter. Now there is Svirus now within him, which means our impression, the impression of each one of us. 1 point. Then we said, continue, look in the text. And then we said, but how could this be impression? That's because by his decision, he said, I will be impressioned. I will allow myself to be impressioned. That means there's a shaykhis. This is by defined decision. You'll recall that he said that we should affect even Atzilus is impossible. That's only because Kach Ola B'Ritzoyin, and it's certainly true of the Oyer Ein Sof. But at the end of the day, the Oyer Ein Sof, by God's decision, is impressionable. Pure Oyer Ein Sof is impressionable. In brackets, by God's decision. Bedugmas Mayim, like the water. Why is it that my physical image can be seen in the water? Because we're in the same category. It's impressionable for images to be reflected in it. Bedugmas Mayim, the Zeshan, it is Bahem the Musaponim, Mr. Kalasbem, Lofish and Bahem Baponim, a basis of the Amitzius. That explains why I meant the whole Kasha and Teres. But because water and the image of the person that looks there are the same category, the same unit, same world, one can affect the other. So, having said that, so what's the difference then between the actual level of Eses Vidus Agnuzas after we call God and the pure Oyer Ein Sof? It's synonymous. The pure Oyer Ein Sof means it's impressionable by God's decision, and the Eses Vidus Agnuzas means that's not really there. It's because we have called him and summoned him, therefore it's there. So it's also this impressionable. It's only there when we call. The image is only there when the face is shown. It's the same darga. The given shegam eses v'des agnuzes, since the so-called the low the eses v'des agnuzes, not Oyer Ein Sof, pure Oyer Ein Sof. That's the v'des agnuzes. That is the question now. That is the image in the Oyer Ein Sof. Since that's not a real hard and fast image, God forbid. That level is only the possibility. So when we don't, he's talking about the level before we call upon him. So when we don't call upon him, it's just a name, a possibility. Then what's the difference between the possibility, the name, and the pure Oyer Ein Sof, which is also the possibility, because it's the same category. If an image will be shown there, then the image will be reflected back. It's the same thing. If he's called, then the name is there. If an image is shown there, then the image is there. So to summarize the question, what's the difference between the image in the water that the spheres that the Oyer Ein Sof could receive it because it's the same category, and the shemus, which Eses Vidus Agnuzes, that if you call me, then the name exists. Name and the image, the same thing. You understand the question? Yes? Let's read the question inside. Since the level of Eses Vidus Agnuzes that final Moshe we gave was the image is not there's only an image if you'll call him. It's only the possibility. That's on the one hand. That's the sublimeness of the Eses Vidus Agnuzes. Now talking about the Oyer Ein Sof, the Oyer Ein Sof before being called, which is where the image would be, but we're talking a level before there's an image, but yeshle shaychas the svidus, it has a connection to that. So that's too his possibility. What's the difference? So before we go further, I gave you already the answer, the fourth level. Listen up, guys. Listen, it's not in the Maimon. The fourth level is not the name. The fourth level, which is a mashal for the Oyer Ein Sof. That if there would be a name, and someone, if there would be a name, if I would choose to give a name, and someone would call me by it, I would turn to. So in the words of the Maimon that are coming, it's like this. Okay. The general distinction between, what are we trying to understand? The Oyer Ein Sof and Eses Vidus Agnuzes. What's the difference in the level? They're both the possibility of being affected by you and I. The Ein Sof is the same category. Yes, it's are names and possibility. It's the same darge. So listen up. I'm going to tell you what the Maimon is saying further. You have to listen. In the words of the Maimon, the difference is this. Since a name is already given, that's a level where God has already set names. Again, what does a name mean? Nothing till you use it. That's true. But a name already says that there is, on some level, someone else that's going to use it. And then I will then respond to him. In the Ein Sof, which is the mashal I gave, that if I'd have a name and someone called me, that it's totally within self. That whole state is within self. A name is on some level already the acknowledgement of someone, of an other that will use it. When they don't call me, it's not there. But there is a caller. There's a caller. If you say a person has a name, I mean, let me put it to you this way. If you say a person has a name, you know he's not living in a desert island. Because if this is a desert island, then he wouldn't have a name. So you don't know if there's anybody there, who, what, when. I mean, it could be the other side of the island. They never called him, doesn't need it. But there is the possibility. There's some outside that if they use that name, he'll call. That's a Sfiras HaKnuzos. But what's the Ein Sof? The Ein Sof is within self totally. That if there would be a name, and so, the consent that yes, there could be a name. The consent that there could be a name, but not if there would be. The consent that there could be a name. The possibility of a name. And then there's the next possibility that someone will call it. So this is the low level of Yecheles, where the name is there already. All it needs is someone else to call it, which on some level exists already, an alternative. The Ein Sof, which allows the image to be impressioned in it, is higher than the level of name. It's the consent that if there would be a name and that name would call me, I'll respond. That's what we're saying. The pshitas of the Ein Sof. That's a level of Yecheles that is higher than Yecheles of a name. Are we clear somewhat? Let's see that in the Maimon.
And that's where the decision came about.
Yeah.
Not in Atzmos, but still in
That's what that Ratzon is. Now, why should it be that Ratzon? That's because Neshamas are rooted in Atzmos and he wants a relationship with Eden Lamata. That's what's behind there should be such a Ratzon. Why would you want this?
So the decision did not come from Atzmos. The decision came from the Ein Sof because the Yidden are Moshe
the articulated decision that if there would, the possibility, I'm granting the possibility that there could be a name. And then if someone will call the name, I'll respond. It's Yecheles within Yecheles. But why should this whole process be? Because Neshamas are rooted in Atzmos and want a relationship with Neshamas Lamata, and therefore this whole thing is set in motion. But let's try and understand. Tell me, answer this question. What are we trying to answer? And be technical and geographical. What are we trying to answer? What is the difference between A and B? What's A and B? What's the question? Both are now. Without before you learn the Maimer, what's kind of questions? Ein Sof is infinite. There's no descriptions at all. This was like a gnosis is already 10 spheres. What are you asking? This question before you learn the Maimer is not a question. It's a different universe, infinite, finite, finished. Come on. But now they've explained something about the Ein Sof and something about that Sesvis Agnosis. Now it's the same level. What did we say about that's the Sfiras HaGnuzos? They're only what? Possibility. Potential is not even the good. Koyach has more potential. I was going to say there's a different. Potential must actualize. Potential must actualize. Possibility doesn't have to be. So it's not koyach. You said before, between koyach and yechelis. Maybe it's coming later. And it's coming later. So not potential, but possibility. So Etzem V'Knus is possibility. That's on the one hand. They're not really there. If you don't call, not there. And on the other hand, we said about the Ein Sof, Hashem made the decision that he would be impressioned. It's the same level. The Ein Sof is impression because, like the face in the water, why is the face in the water? Because it's the same sug, it's the same category. So if it's in the same category, and it could be impression there, that's just right. You call me by my name, I'll call you. If you don't call me, it's not there. It's both Yechelit, it's both possibility. And what's the answer? But as I articulated in the mashal of a person, but the answer, what's the answer that I give in giving a mashal for it? Using the name, but probing behind the name, even deeper. The mashal for that is my name. It only exists when somebody calls it. And the mashal for the Ein Sof is the consent, the possibility that if I'd have a name, that's the level. If I would have a name, and the rest would follow, but not an actual name, the possibility of a name. That l'cher is a mashal for the Ein Sof. It's a name already, but someone's got to use it for it to be real. So what he means, is that on some level, again, if I say someone has a name, you know that he exists amongst people. That he may or may not relate to. He may choose to be a hermit. But there's a possibility of people calling him. That's Etzes Agnuzis. But the Ein Sof is, it's all within the Ein Sof. The consent, for the possibility of a name, and then the next level, the name being used and turning. So we'll see it in the Maimer. It's already 7 o'clock. Okay, 5 to 7. So think about this a little bit, and we'll see it in the words of the Maimer. The words of the Maimer is, just listen up. We've got 5 to 7. The words of the Maimer is that the Ein Sof is, you will impression me because I have so decided. That's purely what it is. With Esas Veres already is that kind of no choice, because when there is a name and you call me, I'm going to turn to you. So that's already, in Esas Veres, there's already a legitimacy on some level granted to the other. Whereas the way it is in Ein Sof, the other's legitimacy is only because I'm giving that legitimacy. There's no given. There's no element of given. In the imagery, it's in Ein Sof, it's I'm taking you into me. That's like this is okay, I'm going to relate to you. Both of you. But are you because you're you, or you because I've so decided there should be a you? That's the way, that's the Yechelis as it is in Ein Sof. Now go daven.